good morning, and today we discuss a item appeared in the newspaper, that is the excesses committed by the United Nations peacekeeping mission personnels in and around the world. It's a disturbing news. So today I'm covering this aspect. Before to that, I request all of you to subscribe to my channel, Law Speeches. In this channel, I am basically posting my lectures on the various facets of law and sometimes international developments. Simply you click to my channel titled as Law Speeches, subscribe it, and also press the icon bell for further notifications. So I told you, while I am browsing the newspaper, I found that United Nations peacekeeping forces are committing a kind of excesses where they have been deployed. So this is a very sad state of affairs. So today we discuss what is the United Nations peacekeeping force. As you know that the First World War and Second World War has devastated the world in a certain extent. So after that war, the world has to be rebuilt. With that view, the then world leaders have signed an historical document after 7 sorts of negotiations from Tehran to Moscow, ultimately to San Francisco. The uncharter was signed on 24th of October 1945. The main motto of the uncharter to maintain peace and tranquility in the world and also reconstruct the world, because it was seen devastation in such an extent which we cannot describe in words. Even after the formation of the United Nations, regional conflicts have been taking place here and there. And some parts of the world we have seen unrest, secession forces, and also independent movements. So that led to creation of the United Nations peacekeeping force in January of 1949 under the aegis of the United Nations organization. The Security Council and the General Assembly has accepted there should be a force, a police and military force should be there to control the sudden development of unrest or to control the peaceful settlement of the many issues around the world. Because already we have seen the impact of war in our lives. That should not be there to generations to come. So with that view, the UN peacekeeping forces has been established. So UN peacekeeping forces consisting of the forces personals drawn from its members. As and today also we could see the working of the UN peacekeeping forces around the world. You know, in 1949, when Kashmir situation was arisen between the India and Pakistan, then UN has interfered into the matter and it has sent the UN peacekeeping forces, and they have stabilized the conditions which were there at that time. and in Korea war, after the war, Vietnam, and in many African countries and also in West Asia, UN keeping fo- keep peacekeeping forces have been working and they have succeeded their mission. Basically, the three important elements are there for the sending of the UN peacekeeping forces to that reason. One is the consent of the parties or consent of the nation. Without the consent of the nation, the forces cannot be sent. Or even if the consent is not given, suppose United Nations Security Council General Assembly makes a decision for send the forces, at that time also the forces can be deployed there. The second is the United Nations peacekeeping forces, the personnel should impartial while discharging, while stationing in those countries. They should not side with any parties. They have to discharge their functions, any kind of siding that we call as impartially they have to perform their functions. Then the another important aspect that non-use of force except in self-defense and defense of the mandate. So the UN peacekeeping force personnel, they should be observe non-use of force. They should not use the force at any point of time, except in case of the self-defense or defense of which they have been mandated. So United Nations peacekeeping forces have been greatly playing for the bringing of stability, peace and security of the persons or civilians who are traumatized by such conditions. So as on today, in three continents, in Asia, Africa and in South America, Latin American countries, the United Nations peacekeeping forces have been deployed and they are successfully controlling the regional conflicts, civilian conflicts and other forms of unrest in those parts. So they should, to deploy it, there should be a concurrence of the General Assembly and also the Security Council. Thereafter only the UN peacekeeping forces will be deployed. So now, just I told you before that a news item is appeared that even UN peacekeeping forces also, some personals have committing a sort of offences against women and girls, that may be sexual offences. The recent report which came out that there are 100 or so such kind of offences were committed by the UN peacekeeping forces in last year, 2024. And before to that, there were 145 cases were committed. And the main targets, main victims of this kind of offences are girls and women. So that speaks very, very sad, because they were sent for maintaining the peace and harmony in that particular region, but instead of that, the police or the troops involved such peaceful operations have been perpetrating the illegal activities. That should not sound good. So, to avoid this, the Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, Antonio Guterres, when he took as a Secretary General in 2017, he made a committee to inquire into any kind of allegations against the peacekeeping forces, and he also appointed an advocate to look after the hardships or problems of the victims, because sometimes the UN peacekeeping personals have been raping the girls and women, and in some cases such women girls became pregnant. So this is very bad. That should not be there. Mostly last year we observed the figures. Mostly the things have been happened in Congo, South Sudan, Lebanon, where these parts are affected by civil war. To maintain the peace and harmony, United Nations peacekeeping forces have been deployed there. But some of the elements have been committing these kind of crimes, and even in Haiti, Colombia, Afghanistan, where we could see volatile situation is prevailing. To control that situation, UN peacekeeping forces have been deployed. So they have to maintain the decorum, because selection into the UN peacekeeping force is not an easy task. Only a dedicated officers will be selected to that special task. So India is also playing a very, very active role in world peace and stability by participating the United Nations peacekeeping operations from time and again. Till today, around 5,323 personals, police forces, or to say troops of Indian origin are India. They are working in 8 missions across the globe. Since 1949, around 2,32,000 police and troops were worked for the UN peacekeeping force for bringing security, stability, maintenance of law and order, and tranquility, and also the prosperity of that particular nation. So UN, though they have certain grave areas, errors are there by a limited personnel, but basically we can say that United Nations peacekeeping forces are working efficiently, objectively, which they have assigned the work, they have carried those works in a very, very efficient manner. So maybe certain areas are there, grave persons are there, doing certain offenses or illegal things, but we could have to appreciate the UN peacekeeping forces for maintaining the tranquility around the world. Thank you for patiently listening my lecture.